Please welcome Managing Director for Premier in Middle East, Simon Leigh, Chief Operating Officer for Rove Hotels, Paul Bridger, and Chief Development Officer of the Premium, Midscale, and Economy Division for the Middle East, Africa, and Turkey for Accor, Ziadeh, in discussion with Skift Middle East reporter Josh Corder.
Okay, thank you everyone. So far today, we've very much been hearing about the Middle East under the luxury narrative, known for its five-star hotels. We're sitting in one of the best in the city right now. What I want to bring you guys together for is, beyond luxury, what's next? What do we look for beyond the five-star? So Paul, obviously very good speaking about Rove, a well-known mid-market operator, Simon to Premier Inn, and Maya, obviously you head up the development for the mid-market part of Accor. So Paul, I'll start with you. We heard from Dubai airports this morning about their plans to grow significantly, thereby pushing a lot more traffic into the city. What have you done and what are you doing to make Dubai a place better suited for that greater number of tourism?
Well, it was interesting to hear the talks this morning. And there was a whole conversation around Dubai being an accessible price point in the right locations. And I think as a brand, we've tried to be really focused about where our hotels go. We're in super central locations, downtown Dubai, City Walk. We've got 2 hotels actually, I think you can see from the roof here. So I think our message is that in order to stay in a great location, have a great product, great service, you don't need to break the bank. And I think that's our kind of brand ethos, let's say.
And Simon, the way you do business with Premier Inn, so Premier Inn in Middle East is a sort of different beast to how it is in the UK. From what I understand, you're in much more sort of residential locations here, so much more knitted to communities. What is the strategy behind being in those more residential locations and sort of how you push out your business in this region?
I think some of it, Josh, is going to be a bit about history. So Premier Inn's been in the Middle East now for about 16 years. Anyone that knows the brand in the UK, kind of 850 properties in the UK, 50 plus, 55 now, I think it is, operating in Germany, with a pipeline of another 50. So the 11 that we have here in the Middle East, I think has been a bit of an organic journey over time. I think we're well placed in a market at the moment, and certainly from a mid-market perspective, where Dubai continues to grow, the pipeline continues to grow. We're expecting, you look at the numbers coming through Dubai airport, the volumes there are quite staggering. That will get to a point where there's a bit of capacity constraint, but then there's plans to develop the new airport in the south of Dubai. And therefore, I think the market can still take more volume. And from our perspective, mid-market, high value, high quality, I think it plays exactly to the point Paul makes, is you need, having that mid-market offer, I think is very important in terms of the overall balance of keys in the market. Because if you get that wrong, it can be quite unsettling on each end of the spectrum.
To what I'll ask Maya, but have you found it to be an easier sell for Premier Inn sort of now compared to, say, 10 years ago when you were starting out over here? Is there a lot more understanding and appetite for that mid-market segment?
I mean, it's only 3 years. I'm relatively new, okay? I think anyone that's been here, I think on my right, Paul, how many years have you been here now?
15.
15. Say it loudly, Paul. 15.
15.
Maya, how many years? 23 years. So I'm the baby on the stage, not the baby in age, obviously, but the baby on the stage in terms of my time in the Middle East.
But I'm the youngest.
But you are the youngest, absolutely.
I'm second youngest.
And you're second youngest. And he's very bad at maths. I think the market is, there definitely, is there a gap in the market? Yes, there's a gap in the market. If you look at the volume of mid-market keys in Dubai, I think it's about 50,000 at the moment, 48, 50,000. There's 150,000 keys in Dubai. So you kind of go, there's a fair slug of the market that's already mid-market, but that doesn't mean that there's not more opportunity. And I think in our segment specifically, focusing on quality and service as an absolute primary is essential. And to continue to support the growth ambitions of Dubai, you need that mid-market point. If you don't have it, not everybody can afford the 5-star high-end ultra luxury. You need to have a price point that works, and our locations are great. I mean, you've got Premier Inn, Dubai, Barsha Heights there. Yeah, forget the traffic in Dubai, it's a little bit busy at the moment, but broadly speaking, you can be most places within 25 minutes, half an hour. So, yeah.
Maya, you're sort of a bit more forward-looking than the two gents, focused on signing hotels, which may open 5, 10 years in the future. Running Middle East and Turkey development in the mid-scale premium and economy. How does it differ from having a conversation for a luxury property? Do you find that it's tricky to get a seat at the table, or is it fairly easy to get those conversations started in this part of the world?
Yeah, thank you, Josh, for this question. Actually, Accor is leading in terms of established network in Middle East, Africa, and Turkey, whether it's luxury, premium, mid-scale, economy, or lifestyle. To answer your question, it's not really that difficult, because with luxury, we do not compete with them, but we complete each other. We complement each other. The gentleman we're talking about, Dubai being or used to be a luxury destination, and is or does continue to be a luxury destination. But in order to broaden the audience, in order to attract more tourists, especially from the middle class, for example, from India, from Africa, from China, we need to diversify the segment. Hence, there is no issue in putting Novotel, for example, which is our core brand, founded in 1967. And the first Novotel that opened in the region was in Cairo around 40, 50 years ago. There is no issue. There is a huge demand from investors in asking for mid-scale brands like, as I said, Novotel, brands like design-led brands, Handwritten Collection, Tribe. So there is demand for this, and definitely the national tourism strategies for Dubai or for Saudi Arabia and the alignment between private and public sectors are really helping.
A lot of people maybe falsely think that these strategies are largely to push luxury products into the market. People look at the Saudi vision, they see Neom, Trojena, all these giga projects across the kingdom, a lot of them with 5-star Accor signings, and they think, where are the economy hotels?
We have actually signed in Ru'al Madina a Novotel. It's part of Ru'al Madina development, along with Swissôtel and Fairmont. So as I said, we complement each other between luxury, premium, and mid-scale. And we are currently or actively working on projects in brands in giga projects. And these brands are mainly design-led. So even for giga projects, there is a huge demand for mid-scale. But again, we're seeing a shift in the mindset of investors. So we're looking at design-led mid-scale brand like Tribe and like Handwritten Collection. For Saudi, the national tourism strategy is actually incentivizing investment for segments in 5-star, but also in 4 and 3 stars, and in 10 main cities, second wave cities like Al Hayel, Al Jouf, Khamis Mshed, Al Qasim, and we have signed a Mercure, for example, in Khamis Mshed. It's part of a master development agreement with AMSA Hospitality, where we are expanding our mid-scale brands across second wave cities in Saudi Arabia.
So for you, Paul, the way that your ownership structure works, and Simon is similar, you have this government safety net, I'll call it. You have a split government ownership. What does that ownership structure mean for you in sort of furthering whatever direction the government has given you?
Well, I think regardless of the ownership, I think it's good business to support the city, the country, and the destination. I think, if you see the level of engagement we see, but in the UAE from the various tourism authorities with the private sector, it's second to none. And I think, our job as operators, regardless of our ownership, is we're all in it together. We've got to push the destination. We actively support all of the government initiatives because essentially it's good business. And it's great to see the level of events that come to the region, to the city. Expo 2020, prime example. where we had a hotel right in the heart of it and really benefited. And we see this constant back and forward engagement from the tourism authorities, whether it's Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, you name it.
Wake up to the importance to offer increased amount of mid-scale products?
Yeah, I don't think it was never on the agenda. I think, it's a bit like we see in the Giga projects now, where you have the trophy assets that make the headlines. Right? In reality, most of the visitors come in, the next 3 or 4 levels down. Right. So, but you've got to have the headlines in order to, to attract the attention, and then the other brands will follow and, and support. And I think it's a complementary job, a bit like Maya was saying. It's not either or. A guest that maybe stay in a luxury hotel for their honeymoon might come back on business and stay in Rove. So I don't think it's necessary. We're quite good at segmenting people and saying, oh, that's a budget traveler, that's a mid-scale, that's a luxury. I think particularly now, different purposes will have different reasons for staying, different places they stay, depending on the occasion.
You seem to be nodding your head to a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's right. I think when you look at location strategy, and we've got hotels at airports, got hotels close to conference centres. I think booking behaviour sometimes isn't about I'm going to go to a conference in Dubai and I'm going to stay on the Palm, because they actually think about proximity. They want to be close to wherever the event is. You've got Expo City, you've got your hotel down there, and I think over time, as more events move down there, it's going to benefit our hotels that are south, and it will certainly benefit anyone that's near Expo, just as an example. So you've got lots of different booking behaviours, and I think it depends upon what someone is travelling for. If it's I want some time on the beach, and I've got money to spend, then obviously you've got a high-end luxury. If you want to go and visit Dubai and you want to come over or you're coming over for business, then there's a range of good options available for all price points as well.
Conversations to enter the so-called trophy locations as sort of a secondary option alongside that. If you can't afford to stay in the Giga project 5 stars, a property like yours could maybe be 30 minutes down the road.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, if you take KSA, so we've been looking at Saudi as a key target market, and we spent probably about 18 months, nearly 2 years, working our way through that process. And it feels like it's taken a bit of time, but actually being clear around where we're going to go to and who we're going to do that with and the partner. But if you take Riyadh and Jeddah alone, we don't need to be anywhere near a Giga project to be successful. And when you look at the market rates, and you look at the amount of development required and the amount of keys required in Saudi, there's no need to chase that trophy location. And with that trophy location, inevitably it's going to be expensive. And when you're on a value model, you've got to be very thoughtful about there'll be owners' expectations. If we're not investing capital and we're not buying a property and developing a property ourselves, there'll be an owner's expectations and returns, and we'll expect a certain amount back in terms of management fees. So you've got to hold yourself honest to the core of what are we great at, what can we deliver, what's our model, and where will that best play out in terms of location strategy.
Maya, when you and I were speaking backstage, I was really interested in this idea of ego projects. So I'm not saying they're good or bad, but Burj Al Arab, Atlantis, in Saudi, Neom now, Trojana, Diriyah, very prestige trophy assets. And it used to be the case that a lot of them were driven by ego. We want the tallest building, we want this, that, and the other. You were saying to me you're seeing a shift away from this sort of return on ego, as you called it.
Yes. Yeah, so again, I've been in this region for the past 23 years. I'm very young. When I started my career in hospitality, I've seen and I've met many investors. They just want to have luxury and ultra luxury brands, which is fine. It's a normal evolution of the market. You start with building your destination, you start with luxury products, and then you diversify. But now it's interesting. As you have mentioned, it was mainly an ego-driven. And again, this is normal to have in the region. But now we're seeing more discussions on return on investment and how can the investor have a faster return on on investment. They are discussing more low operational cost. And this is again aligned with what mid-scale brands are offering. You have low construction cost, and due to the economic climate now, we need to have brands with low construction cost in order to guarantee a certain return on investment. So there is now a discussion with these investors, whether in Saudi Arabia, whether in UAE or the rest of the region, in Turkey and Africa. So in my region, there is this discussion now, how can we benefit from a low construction cost, but a faster return on investment?
Just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, you can direct them on the Skift app and we can get to them later. Following on from that, Paul, what do you think the wake-up call was to transition away from these ego products and more towards the sorts of things that you offer? Was there sort of a turning point in the market as someone very familiar with Dubai?
Well, I just want to briefly touch on what you mentioned about people can't afford to stay in a luxury hotel and they'll maybe stay in a different hotel. I think if you look at the changing trends now, particularly younger population, people want to spend more of their money on experiences. And therefore, and if I look at, if I go into the lobby of our hotel near here, like Rove downtown, they're not budget travelers, right? They've got Louis Vuitton and other brands with them. There's often a luxury car parked in the car park. So I think that's probably a bit of a misconception that's changed over time. And I think, like I said earlier, I think you have to have these flagship properties. You can say return on ego, but there's also there's about building a destination, right? We all know Dubai because of Burj Al Arab, Burj Khalifa, et cetera, et cetera. And I think once you have them, then of course you're looking at the rest of the return on on your investments. And I think diversification is another reason to have a wide segment of different hotel brands as well.
For you, you see someone like Accor, they have 40 different budget brands that they can give to a developer. What's it like for you guys having just one brand that you can open the booklet and show them? That applies to both the developer and the traveller, I suppose, that you only have one product you can show them.
Yeah, we were having a little chat backstage before we came out, and it might have got a little bit of heat from us because from our perspective, it's one. We've got one brand. I mean, in the UK, we've got Hub. But it's really, relatively speaking, it's predominantly Premier Inn. It's your 24 square meter room, and you know what you get in terms of great night's sleep and everything else. Not having those multi-brands is an interesting piece that has come up a number of times in conversations, and sometimes it's met with a little bit of surprise, which is, you don't have multiple brands. This is what it is. So I think from an owner's perspective, you've just got to be very clear, and I think it comes back to your point about ROI. You've got to go demonstrate the model, demonstrate the commercial benefits of that, and then also play to the fact we talk about mid-market, but I think again to Paul's point, it's really good quality, and I think the benchmark is naturally so high here when you compare kind of other products in other markets. There's certain requirements upon us. That we do have swimming pools, we do have gyms, and they're things that can differentiate. And then in terms of service, quality, and standards, you have to compete because the market is so aggressive, and people are very. I think our consumers and our customers are very price sensitive, and that creates a good tension in the market. But if you drop off of your quality and your service, and you get your pricing wrong, it's a catastrophe. So yeah, I think. Again, it comes into a bit about balance.
I know a famous quote from Issam Kazim, the CEO of Dubai Tourism, is that a 3-star hotel in Dubai is about as good as any 5-star hotel overseas. And staying in your properties, I think that definitely holds true. On that point, the idea that your business model in Dubai, for example, is very different from the UK, and yet you compare the rates that you command here to, say, London, Rome, Paris in the summer when in Ibis styles, let's say, can cost €300. Dubai, for whatever reason, never seems to get to those rates. So I'll start with you, Simon. Let's talk about the rates that you can command in this market.
Yeah, and this is one I was kind of doing a bit of research before I came here as well, and the research started at home actually. So my wife she recently travelled back to the UK. So last Thursday she was back in the UK, stopped in London, stopped in King's Cross. True to the Premier Inn brand, she stayed at Premier Inn, and she paid £220 a night. £220 a night. So what's that? Best part of 1,000 dirhams. On the same night, you could have stayed in Barsha Heights property, 390 plus, just under 500. You're looking at about £100. So you kind of go, there's a big price differential between the city still, and I think if you look at certainly from a mid-market perspective, and I think it applies to 5-star and 4-star as well, there is a piece around, and this ties into a number of dynamics that I play through in my mind a little bit, which is, we do have, on average, better GOP. So I think on average, all hotels about 46% GOP. So we've got we've got quite high GOP compared to Paris, compared to London, which is between 30 and 40%. Now they've naturally got higher costs. Labour costs are different, other bits and pieces. But you do see kind of lower rate. And at some point in time, especially with supply coming into the market, over the next 5 to 10 years before the airport is open and we've got 250 million people pushing through that airport, there is a question around actually the phasing and timing of that additional supply, how it comes in, and how much downward pressure that potentially puts on rate. And I think it is a fine balance to walk, and we do work closely with DET, and Paul and I sit on the 3 and 4-star hotel committee. I think we do work incredibly well to make sure the offer that we have in the market is exceptional to bring as many people as we can. But when you start pushing that volume of supply into the market, it is a bit of a mind the gap moment that I just think has got to be trod with caution, because you don't command the same rates as London and France, as an example. We know there's a differential there, and as soon as you start to squeeze margin, certainly in a value and a mid-market, from a budget perspective, if that's the best way to put it, you haven't got many places to go and play in the P&L in terms of your operating costs. So you've got to be very efficient in what you do. So I think that's a bit about where how rate plays into it, and a bit of the supply coming in that we just need to be very thoughtful about.
Paul, I'll throw a similar question to you. Are you happy with your rates? I've said to you before pretty openly, if you opened a Rove in Paris, let's say, I think you do really well, because in the summer you could charge hundreds of euros. But Dubai summer, obviously, it's the lowest season and the rates are very low. And I feel if you were in other markets, your rates would be a lot stronger.
Yeah, so I think, to my earlier point, our brand is more, let's say, soft touches than hardware. So, we're not too stuck on a 23 square meter room. And, we're more about the experience that you have in the hotels. And, yes, we have one brand. We have a hotel on the beach. We have a hotel in downtown. We've just opened a 60-key hotel on JBR. So we're pretty flexible. We've just launched branded residences. So as long as we have those, and they all feel like Roves. So as long as we have those touches, we're comfortable with having a one brand. And I think on the rates, I'd like to think we sit in this really nice spot where, we can make money at 100 odd dirhams. If you look in, again, our hotels tonight, you're going to pay anywhere from 400 to probably 1,200 plus, depending on the location. So, I think our operating costs are lower here than in a lot of markets, which is a nice thing to be. And I think it's quite location driven here at the moment. I'd like to think that we have quite good flex on our rates in Rove, particularly.
So for you, Maya, looking ahead, we're hearing a lot about sort of as markets mature, that's when you see your sorts of brands coming in. Where are the opportunities of growth for Accor at the moment in this region, in your segment?
Yeah, sure. So Midscale is definitely a great opportunity to grow in the hospitality market, but also premium and economy. It depends where you are. For example, Dubai, the Midscale segment and the eco is the way to go in Dubai and in UAE. Ras Al Khaimah, for example, mid-scale leisure resort, attracting both business and leisure, or what we call pleasure. And we have a great Movenpick in Ras Al Khaimah. Turkey is a different story, but we're seeing lots of movement in mid-scale and in premium in Turkey, whether in Istanbul or in leisure destinations as well. Egypt, a huge growth in the premium and in mid-scale. And what's interesting in Egypt, we're seeing more of branded resi as part of the mixed-use development. North Coast is booming now. We have recently signed Novotel in Sidi Abdurrahman on the North Coast. It's a resort hotel, mid-scale resort, as well as Swiss Hotel, which is playing in the premium segment, along with Swiss Hotel branded resi. So we're seeing huge demand and huge opportunity to grow the mid-scale, especially in key cities, premium in very primary cities, but also the second wave cities, as we spoke in Saudi Arabia and in some leisure destinations.
The idea to create a string of travel where you stay in a secondary city and gradually move into a capital city using your properties.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if you have a well-established network, you can use a combined marketing campaign for all the hotels, and this will help also labor as well. Having task force help clustering opportunities as well in order to lower operational cost.
In our final couple minutes, there's a sort of interesting case study I want to throw to Simon, which is how Mid-Markets Hotel capitalize on events. If people have been following during Coldplay's tour of Abu Dhabi next year, the rates at Premier Inn are, let's say, phenomenal. And again, during F1, it's a similar story. So how can an affordable operator like you, command those rates and capitalize on these big events?
I think, so when we go through the budgeting process from our perspective, we will always, and we've become dependent on those big events. When you look at the performance, and we've had a couple of bumper years, and this year is still looking strong versus last year. Last year was a record year for us. So I'm very positive about the market. So my comments earlier on, it was more around the kind of the mind the gap moment. But in terms of those key events for us, they're vital, and they're an amazing opportunity. You kind of look at a revenue split. You look at the first 6 months a year is probably a third, and then we do 2/3 in the back end of the year when all the events come in, etc. So very, very important. We're a business. We have to take the opportunity as well. So we price dynamically, and we try to price fairly, I guess, is the right way to put it. But equally, when the market is good, the market's good, and you got to take your moment. And those big events mean a lot. Be it ADIPEC, be it GITEX, be it there's a whole calendar of events, and therefore they do form an underpin in our budget, which is all about how do we maximise the opportunity around the event season.
Finally, Paul, I'll end with you. I suppose you're looking forward to New Year's Eve, where a stay in Rove downtown is what, 6,000 dirhams?
I think our revenue guys are at the front there somewhere. I think we're probably 2,000 something on New Year's Eve. We try to be, we want to be balanced, right? So we have a brand. I don't want anybody to leave feeling like they've been ripped off. So we have to be balanced in our approach. We also have options that are 500-600 dirhams. Yeah. So we find that balance across the city.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.